welcome to Hypnotize Me, the podcast about hypnosis, transformation, and healing. This is Dr. Liz. Before we get started with today's topic, I want to let you know that in the month of June 2017, I am running a contest if you leave a review for me in the podcast. Reviews help other people find the podcast, which is why you always hear podcasters say, like, please leave me a review. It helps people discover the podcast, because the more reviews you have, then the more iTunes, Stitcher, all of those present your podcast as a possibility for someone to listen to. So in the month of June 2017, I'm running a contest to be entered into a drawing for a Hypnotize Me podcast t-shirt. You've seen the logo. It is really cute. And I am willing to ship this anywhere in the world. We just went over 10,000 downloads, and I am so happy and excited. I know that's very small numbers compared to like the great big major podcasts, which get like millions of downloads a month. But I am just so pleased as a solo practitioner that the word about hypnosis has reached 10,000 people. So happy about that. So thank you so much for listening and for downloading, for subscribing. And again, if you write a review, you have to email me, DrLiz, DrLiz, at drlizhypnosis.com. Email me the review, your name, your username, and then I will enter you into the drawing. I'm going to announce the winner in July. Let's get to today's topic. Can you learn a second language better with the help of hypnosis? I think this is a really interesting topic. I've learned French. I studied it in high school, and it was my minor in undergraduate. I was born in Paris, actually, and my parents lived in France for many, many, many years. So it was always dear to my heart. So I know French. And then when I met my ex-husband, who was Cuban, I decided to learn Spanish. That was really interesting, right? I was in graduate school and taking a Spanish class at the community college while working on my PhD. So I took a semester or so I could better communicate with him and his family. It was so similar to French. And my dad actually spoke 8 different languages. So he spoke English, German, Spanish, French, and then 4 African languages, Kikuyu, Ototeya, Swahili, and then the Click language. He was really a linguist, and he was actually earning a doctorate in international languages that he never finished. I talk about that more in the podcast about goal setting. If you want to hear that whole story, and that episode is episode 7, I think. I'll put it in the show notes just to make sure. But he knew languages, and he used to always tell me, once you begin to dream in a different language, then you know you've really got it. Like it's coming, it's there. So have faith, is sort of his message. So everyone knows the base of learning a new language is vocabulary. It is what scientists call the lexicon. We all have these little bitty, I picture them as like this encapsulated little bubbles in our brains of the words for that language. And of course they get mixed up, because believe me, once I started learning Spanish, and then I went to Paris one year and Spanish popped out of my mouth instead of French. And I was like, oh my God, like the words get mixed up for me. My daughter is taking French now, and we'll be counting, and sometimes like cinco will come out instead of cinq, and it's like, oh my God, 5 in Spanish instead of French. So they do get mixed up sometimes. But once you start learning a language, the vocabulary is really important, and all those words are really important. So I found a study when I was looking for studies about memory, actually, and enhancing academic performance, that used hypnosis to enhance learning a second language vocabulary. So they said, hey, let's see if we can get hypnosis to help these kids learn words, right? Sorry about that beep. It's summertime in Florida. You heard this on another episode. So the electricity goes on and off like all day because it rains a whole lot in the summer. It's like our tropical season. So anyway, back to the podcast. This study was published in the American Journal of Clinical Hypnosis in March 2016. So it's pretty recent. The authors are Satin, Semen, and Yetkner. I'm probably not saying that right, but the links to the articles and their full reference are always in my show notes. So if you want to look that up, if you want to read the full study, then generally you can, or at least the abstract, depending on your access level. This was done with Turkish students at a university in Turkey who wanted to learn Spanish. They didn't know Spanish. And they selected 21 Spanish vocabulary words that were not similar to Turkish or English, because apparently a lot of them knew English. These were unfamiliar words. They put them into a hypnotic trance, relaxation state. They gave them suggestions for attention and memory and concentration, focus. Then they brought them out of the trance. And then they taught them the words. And then they put them back into the trance and gave them suggestions for better memory, recall, concentration, focus, like similar suggestions that they gave them before they took them out of the trance. And then they measured how many of the words they remembered. And they had a control group as well. And they found a significant difference between the two groups at the p less than 0.001 level. So that's a pretty good level. And then they tested them 1 week later too, to see, like, did they retain them? Was it just an effect of in the moment, or did they actually retain them? And even at the 1 week follow-up, it was a higher than average in the hypnosis group. So the significance level between the two groups dropped a little on the 1 week follow-up, but it was still significant. Like, it was still the hypnosis subjects that did higher than average on the 1 week follow-up versus the control group. Now, in the discussion, the authors talk about part of this effect may have been because generally learning vocabulary in a second language is considered frustrating, boring. Sometimes people get bored. It's stressful sometimes, particularly if you have a test coming up, right? Or you're going to travel, right? So this is a great study for people who travel a lot and want to learn a language quickly. Then hypnosis may help you do that. Now, again, they didn't teach the words during hypnosis. So like in an episode I just did around, should you learn stuff during hypnosis? The answer is no. But it's like, can you put someone in a hypnotic state, bring them out, teach them stuff? Yes, that's effective. Okay. And then put them back in for relaxation. So back to the relaxation factor, what I was saying is that the authors say, like, learning a new language is often stressful. And perhaps some of this effect was because we made them relaxed, which reduced their anxiety and stress over learning these words. And how I read that too is they made it a little more fun for them, right? Like, I think anytime you make learning fun, it's going to be better. You're going to have a better time learning those phrases, those words, everything. There was one time that my daughter decided to learn Japanese. This is the same one that's taking French now. First, she was just doing online stuff. And I said, no, let's go get you a book, because she seemed to be really sticking with it. She really loves languages. She's also learning Esperanto, or is it Esperanta? I don't know. So that's like the long lost language, but actually there's, I don't know, 1 million speakers of it or something. They have it on Duolingo, the language learning program. Anyway, she was learning Japanese. So I said, let's go to the bookstore and get you a Japanese phrase book. So we did, but we didn't just get a typical phrase book. It was a phrase book for like slang Japanese when you're traveling. It wasn't just a straight up travel one. It was really like the slang one. And one of the phrases was like, do you want to come home with me tonight? And I was like, oh my God, like, don't learn that phrase, right? It's so funny. But we would just laugh at the phrases they put in there for like the young adult traveler, having fun, traveling in another country, all this stuff. So the more fun that you can make learning a second language, the better, is what I always say. So keep that in mind. Hypnosis is just one way to do that. Hypnosis is just one way to make it more fun for yourself and to increase those abilities of concentration and focus. I hope that wasn't too rambly today, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Peace, people. If you like this episode, do me a favor and rate, review, and subscribe on whatever player you like, or even better, tell a friend so that more and more people learn about hypnosis and how it can be helpful for them. If you want to know more about me, head over to DrLiz-Hypnosis.com. That's DrLiz Hypnosis.com. You can see the downloads and see if there's one that's helpful for your life. Or you could also join the newsletter and get a couple of free files, as well as lots of good content. I've written a newsletter for well over 10 years. Go ahead and subscribe and join the rest of the world. All right, people, have a wonderful week.